Hey everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's time now for a complete recap of the Las Vegas Raiders 31-16 loss to the Dallas Cowboys. We got a lot to talk about tonight. There was a lot in this game to discuss, and we're going to dig right into it. Obviously, there's a ton of players that did not play for the Raiders. And so I think it's very important to talk about news that broke earlier in the day. We've been telling you for months that Josh Jacobs would be here by game one. And today the deal was done and it was announced. It was no surprise to anyone who watches the podcast or reads our work at Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Today. And I think it's important to understand this deal was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and it got done. And I think it's good. I had talked earlier in the week about, there needed to be a point where the Raiders say, you got to be in here by this time, not because you're not in shape, but you're not in game shape until you're here. And the deal got done. There was no drama around it. I know a lot of people love to play the Raider Nation for clickbait, but there really wasn't any, and the deal got done. Then we saw Tyree Wilson for the first time tonight. We didn't see a whole lot. I think there was between 12 and 15 reps. Clearly the guy hasn't played football in a while, and so he certainly did not look like he's going to look probably week 4 or 5. And I think that's completely understandable. There was one play where he got completely shut down, and it was against a wily veteran who understands technique. But then he comes right back in the next play and bull rushes a guy and does so good that he goes past the quarterback. And that's just a play where he's going to have to learn to keep your eyes wide open. There's an old saying in football, believe what your eyes tell you. And the reason is there's a lot of gamesmanship, bringing guys in motion, bringing guys over, moving guys around. And sometimes you just got to believe what your eyes tell you. It's something that Aiden O'Connell does really well. The pre-snap reads, teams like to hide a lot. But when the ball snapped, there's no hiding. You just have to believe what you see. If a guy's open, he's open. If he's not, he's not. You can't go, well, the pre-snap, there was a double guy over there. If you look over and he's there, you got to hit him. And overall, I would not. I know social media wanted to tell a different story, but there was nothing to judge. I think he showed you some flashes of that pass rushing, bull rushing athleticism that the Cowboys didn't have an answer for. But he missed a sack. And those are all things he's going to learn. You got to remember, at Texas Tech, folks, he was not playing against NFL competition. And so he was able, because of his side speed and strength, to overpower people. That's not going to happen. I mean, Max Crosby of today is not the Max Crosby 4 years ago. You have to grow into that. You have to learn. There's going to be a lot of film watching. So I'm just telling you, I didn't see anything to be discouraged about. Absolutely nothing. I think there's some things you can say, okay, he's got to work on that, got to work on that. Listen, there were plenty of other areas to be discouraged in, but not with Tyree Wilson. All right, let's get into I'm trying to how I want to word this. Let's get into Palomar, because this is a guy, a defensive back, trying to make the team, fighting to make the 53 man. And I think there were a couple of defensive backs that had okay nights. I don't think anybody was outstanding. Mao made a couple of good plays, but man, he struggled tonight. There were some tough issues for him tonight. And when you go into this game, if you're playing in week 3, you're either a rookie or you're a guy on the cusp. Now, you could see rookies playing who we know are going to make the team. We know Tyree's going to make the team. We know Amari Burney's going to make that. Well, whatever. But my point is when you're a guy, sorry about that. This table's wobbly. Forgive me. I'm not trying to make you seasick. When you are a guy who's playing and you're a veteran on the 3rd preseason game, you got to know I'm on the cusp. and it's close. And so Paul Mao, to me, struggled tonight. Amik Robertson had a couple of big mistakes, but man, he made several good plays. In fact, I recorded 5 very good plays that he made. One mistake was because another guy had made a mistake and he tried to overcompensate. Again, you want a guy who's willing to help. So I'm not going to call that a complete failure. I'll certainly call it a mistake, but not a complete one. Then he had one just blown. But Amik, he just sticking around, and again made some plays. I thought Luke Masterson was the only linebacker that I thought was excellent. He made one mistake, and the mistake was literally a cowboy had fallen down, and so he just misread it. Okay, he's a second-year player, UDFA. I'm going to give him that. He made several plays, including several right at the point of the attack in an open field that were astounding. Made some really good adjustments. I thought Amari Burney, I don't think he was excellent, but I think he was good. I think he played well, and he's a rookie. He just needs reps. He's not a starter, and I don't think anybody says he is, but I think he looked okay. Drake Thomas made some plays. He also missed some plays, and if you're a guy battling Curtis Bolton, that's a battle. I'm just telling you, that's a battle. I think tonight Curtis Bolton has a lead on Drake. But I think when coaches go back and watch film, and there's a lot of discussion, I mean, he's a UDFA, so it's not like Bolton's super expensive, but you got him under contract. He's a homegrown guy. You may have heard my questions of Dave Ziegler this week and Josh McDaniels. If you didn't go back, please go back and watch their interviews. But I talked to them about making decisions about guys who are, this guy may help us more this year, but this guy's a little bit lower, but his upside's up here. I think that's going to, matter of fact, I know that's going to be a discussion. I think, again, right now, Bolton probably has the lead for that spot, but I think it's super close for Drake. And I projected Drake to make the 53-man before training camp started. I want to get to a guy who you guys all know I like him a lot. In fact, I'll be honest, there is not one Raider on this team I don't like. This is a really good group of people. But a guy that now that training camp's over, I can just tell you, I was very disappointed in Zamir White. I like him a lot. I think he's a super kid. I call him a kid because I'm 52. I don't do that out of disrespect. But he's a second-round pick. They invested money in him. At year 2, getting all the reps he's been getting in training camp, there should have been more. I'm sorry, there just should have been more. Damian Williams came in, looked sensational. Now, I also know that Damian was not facing the competition that Zeus was, but it wasn't that much different. It was different, and I think you got to be honest and forthright and say it was different, but not much. And I thought Sincere McCormick, again, shined. So there's some real questions here. Josh Jacobs, Josh Jacobs, Brandon Bolden, and Amir Abdullah are going to make it. I think you almost have to pencil in Zeus. I don't think the Raiders, no, that's 4, and Jakob would be 5. So the question that the Raiders have is Josh, Amir, Brandon. Do they keep a 4th running back, or do they cut Bolden? I don't think they're cutting Bolden. I know it seems to be, listening to some of the emails and responses I'm getting from you, a lot of people would like to see Bolden go. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think his spot's solid. So do they cut a Zeus? Now, it's going to cost them some money. I don't think they would be able to sign him to a practice squad. I think because, remember, you got to cut guys, then everybody else has a chance to sign them, and then you get to hide him back to practice squad. They might. I just think where he was picked in his college career and still being young, he would get a chance. I mean, somebody took Leatherwood. Anyways, but do they keep a Damian Williams? To me, The way Damian Williams has played, this is a guy you need on this roster. But man, I just don't see him carrying 5 running backs and Jakob. That would just not, to me, be roster discipline. I think that would just be too much. Now, you also got to know that if they keep 9 offensive linemen, I've got them then at 54 guys. All right. So if you keep 9, do you only, knowing that Jakob can play tight end, do you only keep 2 tight ends? Okay. Now let's talk about Jesper Horsted. Jesper Horsted had a good game tonight. In fairness, I thought the offense looked pretty good. Now, there were some guys making mistakes that aren't going to make the team. So you just have to mentally, even though it's hard if you're watching just as a fan, it's hard to disenfranchise yourself from that. But as a media member whose job is to be analytical and not to be a fan, it's easy to say, okay, I mean, there was a couple plays. Oh, that's a mistake. Oh, okay, that guy's not making the team. Not worried about it. So I think there's, I think they've got to carry 3 tight ends, just the Josh Jacobs system. I don't see a way they carry 4 running backs. I think Brandon Bolden's great in the kicking game. He does great rushing. So does Amir Abdullah. Do they roll the dice and say, we're going to keep 3? We're going to keep Josh, Brandon, Damian, or Josh, Amir, Damian. I think if they went with 3, that would probably be the most opportune. But I just don't know that Dave Ziegler and his staff are ready to quit on a guy they picked in the 2nd round. You say, well, yeah, but they let Leatherwood go, but they didn't pick him. I think that would be a swing and a miss. And I would hope that if they don't think he belongs there, if he's not in that top, again, the upside, you got to weigh that. And I know that's what they're doing, but to me, that's a great concern. Let's talk about Aiden O'Connell, who yet again was incredible. Now, understand he got some work against some 2s early. Got a lot of work amongst 3s, a lot of work. And the Cowboys played their 3s well into the 3rd quarter, well into the 3rd, and a couple of them even into the 4th. In fact, there were some 2s in the 2nd quarter and in the 3rd quarter, and almost all 3s in the 3rd, and then 4th quarter was 4th quarter. I thought Aiden O'Connell was excellent. His poise in the pocket was great. He had 2 bad passes, but again, he's a rookie. He's going to have, every quarterback has bad passes, especially I think he threw 26 times. So, but he was great. He stepped up. He moved around. There was one particular play he made that I have not seen him make in practice or in a game yet. And it's something so insurmountable that maybe you didn't see it. I'm not in any way questioning your football knowledge, but sometimes when a play gets going, so there's some ancillary things that were missed. He was under center, and the safety had come up and cheated. And so he had brought over a guy, brings a guy in motion closer to the line of scrimmage and closer to the tackle, which forced the safety to move up. And when he did, he saw a guy swing out into the flat. It was a really good play by Aiden, and it was vision. It was something that you would expect to have seen from Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe not a rookie in his 3rd preseason game. It was a really, really good play by him. And I think those were special things. By the way, I just remembered I told you there was a play where Masterson made a mistake. It's where a guy fell down and one of the defensive tackles went the wrong spot. And so it was a Masterson, he didn't expect this guy to fall down. I apologize. I just remember that out of the top of my head. I'll tell you what really impressed me was Christian Wilkerson is a guy I don't think's making the roster. I don't think he's making the 53. I think they would love to sign him. I don't know that they'll be able to do it. But I don't think he's making the 53. If he does, all for it. I don't dislike him. I just don't think he's making it. Now, remember, I'm not giving you my opinions here. My opinions would be completely different. What I'm giving you, though, is what I'm hearing from inside the organization. So I don't think Christian makes it. I think he makes it very difficult for them to cut him, which is what a player's job is to do. I want to play so well that if you waive me and hope I make your practice squad, someone else is going to sign me. But Christian Wilkerson made a big mistake early, a couple of them actually, and then roared back and was just resilient. You know, this is the National Football League. No one is perfect. The other teams getting paid a lot of money to play football too. And so sometimes I think people see a mistake and think, okay, I don't want that guy on my team. Well, everybody made mistakes tonight. And so everybody makes mistakes in every game. In fact, I heard it said one time, I believe it was Mike Martz who told me this. If I'm wrong, it may have been Steve Mariucci, but I think it was Mike Martz told me one time, he says, you show me a guy that can play an NFL football game and not make a mistake, and I'll show you a guy that didn't play. I always appreciated that about Mike because he is very demanding, very critical. But I always appreciated that he noticed that about guys. And so I thought that was interesting. And I really like to see, I think Christian Wilkerson tonight said, I want to make it really difficult on it. I thought he had a really, really good night. Nesta Jade Silvera. I think this guy's on the bubble to make this team. If I was doing the 53, he would not be. I think there's a chance he may not make it because maybe if I'm not I would keep 10 defensive linemen personally. And if they're not going to keep 10, then they're going to let somebody go. Well, I think Farrell has shown some things. Butler's shown some things. Byron Young got some play tonight. He's young in the system. He's making the team. But I'm sorry. I'd keep Jade. I know that he's on the bubble. But that guy tonight, I have not seen that much holding since my wife said to me, can you bring home dinner and let's watch The Notebook? Yeah. A lot of cuddling. And I'm not complaining. I love my wife. I do love you, honey. Just maybe not The Notebook. But anyways, and so he was held all night. It was he still made plays. But I can't tell you how many times I kept thinking, hold, 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 hold. And when you're watching a guy getting held all the time, that tells you what he's doing. And I think that was very, very critical with him tonight. I want to talk about the quick strike Raider offense. Now, you got to remember, you didn't see a ton of guys tonight. A ton. I thought it was great to see all the reps for the young linemen. I thought Dalton Wagner was very solid. I thought McClendon Curtis was really solid. I think there's some guys that struggled, but they're guys I don't think are going to make the 53. So I thought it was a good night for the Raider offensive line. Again, I told you about linebackers, but I want to talk about another defensive back who made a couple of really bad plays. But man, he overcame it making several good ones. And sometimes a guy will make a play that doesn't show up in the stat book. And I'm talking about Duke Shelley. Duke went out there and balled out. He played some really good coverages. But there were a couple of times where his defensive skills, the guy he was covering was the number one target. And he forced Greer, the Cowboys quarterback, to move off of him. Now, didn't help because Greer slaughtered a lot of people tonight. But I thought, and I know this is just going to get me a ton of criticism, and I'm fine with that. I'm a big boy. I can take it. But I don't think Duke Shelley played as bad as some people on social media thought he did. I thought he did pretty good. Daniel Carlson is Daniel Carlson, 62-yard field goal, 3 for 3. We know what he is. He's arguably the best kicker in the NFL. If he's not number one, he's number two. I thought Jacob Bobenmoyer was a guy, and you may say, well, he only does long snaps. Yeah, he's been really good. He's been able to build that chemistry with AJ and Daniel. I think he's really, really good. Now, I want to give you a couple more. So let's just talk recaps. A lot of people don't know this, but Josh McDaniels was letting Mick Lombardi call the plays tonight. And so you saw some things where some people were being critical of some play calling, but you have to understand they were being situational. There was a couple of incidents where the Raiders went for it on fourth down where they would have never gone for it in a regular season, but they want to get some practices on that fourth down scenario. That's completely makes sense to me. That's completely germane. And there were a couple other scenarios where they ran some plays where I saw some people being critical, but they were really trying to get work in that scenario. They weren't thinking about the ball game. I want to explain it to you this way. I am old enough to remember many years ago there was a Major League Baseball lockout, and it really hurt my love for baseball. But after that, I started going to a lot of minor league games. And I remember going to cover a minor league baseball game once, and a player is throwing a no-hitter, a pitcher's throwing a no-hitter in the eighth inning, and all of a sudden the manager comes out and pulls him. So afterwards, I'm down in the clubhouse, and I asked the manager, what was wrong with him? Was he hurt? Why'd you pull him? He goes, oh, he's on a pitch count. I said, what? He says he's on a pitch count. A pitch count. Throwing a no-hitter. He goes, yeah. And I said, you don't replace a guy this late in the game with a no-hitter unless he's injured. He goes, you're doing the minor leagues. And that's why I never went back to another game. If you're not going to play real baseball, then don't tell me you're playing baseball. Tonight, there were several times where the Raiders in that scenario weren't playing to win. They were playing to work on scenarios. And in the preseason, that makes complete sense. It may not to you, but I'm trying to explain to you it's going to make the Raider team better because you've got some stuff on tape to show. And even if it's not starters, hey, here's what we called. Look at how we handled it, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was very good. I thought Josh McDaniels, I don't want to get into specifics right now. I want to hold back on that for a minute. Until after tomorrow, I'll address it in my next podcast. But I thought there were a couple of decisions he made, even though he wasn't play calling, that he showed you who the guys were on the bubble. And I like the way Josh handled this game tonight. I thought it was really, really good. So overall, the defense was not good. Several of the players that struggled aren't going to make the 53, but there were a few that are going to make the 53 that struggled, and that's concerning. Overall, I give the defense a D. Again, a couple of guys did play well. Not great. In fact, no one other than Luke Masterson I thought was great on defense. And then going over the offensive side of the ball, I thought lots of areas were really good. Yeah, there were some drops by some guys who are ancillary, maybe bubble guys or practice squad guys, but I thought it was really good. Aiden O'Connell was sensational, absolutely sensational. And I think there is so much upside for that young man. The Josh McDaniels system is very intense, and there's a lot of verbiage. There's a lot of things that have to be discussed. But I think you're Aiden O'Connell, in my opinion. I don't know that the depth chart that will be released after Labor Day will reflect this, but I think Aiden O'Connell has played as the second best quarterback. I thought Brian Hoyer was really good against the Niners, and I think he did some good things against San Francisco, but I don't think he was great. And I think every game Aiden O'Connell's been great. And in fairness, against good competition early in games. So I think you got to just be honest and call a spade a spade. So remember, this is where we're at. I'm going to have a lot more recap, and then I'm going to have a huge podcast coming as soon as the 53-man roster is announced, and a lot more. We got a lot more to talk about. So from all of us here at Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Hondo Carpenter. Thanks for listening. Thanks for catching our post-game podcast. We'll see you all soon.